So autumn is also a great time of year to start to think about our next cycle of vegetables. I mean, it's quite early autumn at the moment, and my tomatoes and my pumpkins and some of my carrots and things are still doing very well. But in another perhaps 3 or 4 weeks, when the weather starts to change a bit, it'll be time to pull those out and put in some of our brassicaceae particularly. Great time of year for broccoli, for cabbage, and also for some seeds I've brought along today, but onions, it's a good time. Garlic, it's a great time of year, and none of us should be using that crap garlic that you get in supermarkets. You can also plant beetroot at this time of year, more carrots, and I love to throw in rocket and some lettuce mix. So I always just keep the cycle of rocket and lettuce mix going all year round actually. But what I thought I'd show you now is just some seedling planting and then some seed planting. One of the biggest difficulties that plant vegetables have is the transplant shock. And when you're growing seedlings, just literally by splitting these up, putting them in the ground, the plant will experience probably 1 to 2 weeks easily, maybe 3 weeks of this sort of settling in process, and it really takes them quite a while to get through that. So you've got to make sure your seedlings are nice and damp before you start splitting them apart. We've got to make sure our seedlings are in good nick before we purchase them, and these are in pretty good nick. These are the purple cabbage, which I love, and we eat quite a lot of. In fact, my wife juices it up, believe it or not, eats tons of the stuff. Okay, so I've broken those all up into their little bits, and I mean a purple cabbage gets about that big, so you actually plant them to their mature size. Unlike seed, where you actually row out and you plant them quite close and then you thin, with seedlings we actually have to plant them according to their mature size. So I'm just going to pop these in. What I've done with my soil preparation here, I've had a clay base, I've actually broken that up, added gypsum. I've then added a bit of topsoil and compost. This garden bed has actually had one cycle already of peas, which actually fix nitrogen, so they're almost like a green crop. And I pulled those out last week in preparation for planting the cabbage. So we put these in, so I'm allowing a good 6 or 7 inches before I plant my next one, which is here. Just a little dish around each cabbage. Such good conditions to be planting these in. A little bit of soft rain falling. Why we choose, I mean, you can grow cabbages through summer and broccoli through summer, but we get this problem in Melbourne, which is the white cabbage moth, and it actually just lays eggs everywhere. One of the beauties of planting the brassicaceae now is that you actually don't have to worry about that pest. So again, it comes back to those sustainable gardening practices. We're much better to plant at the time of year when we don't have to worry about white cabbage moth, because to actually try to control white cabbage moth often involves chemicals and poisons, which we don't really want to be applying to our vegetables, particularly in a home garden situation. It just defeats the purpose. Okay, so there's my little row of purple cabbage. It's very important that we water those in immediately, and I do use a little bit of good old sea salt in my watering can, just a couple of caps. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm actually going to row some seeds out here, and then I'll probably plant one more line of broccoli over here. So the seed that I'll choose to grow here is onion. I mean, onion is quite vertical, grows, so I could probably grow, again, giving myself a nice bit of room, probably grow 2 lines of onion in here, and then I'll grow one more line of broccoli through. Now, seed is just a little different technique with growing seed, and I like to smooth my soil out a little bit, and I try to put a couple of lines down. With onion seed, you only need to cover the seed by about 1 centimetre, so it's not a lot. And the onion seed will come up hopefully in about 12 to 15 days, so it's almost about a fortnight. But the critical thing with seed is you have to keep the environment moist all the time. I mean, all these, even the seedlings, we have to keep the consistency of moisture up. Now, while I'm getting this beautiful weather, it's wonderful, I would still be watering these over the next 2 weeks. Just, if I'm getting this sort of rain, it's fine. I wouldn't do them every day, maybe every second day, but if it was hot and warm, every day. And sometimes for seedlings, I'll do them in the morning and I'll do them in the evening. Always water, of course, in the evenings or in the mornings, just because you get a lot less evaporation and it's much more effective. Beautiful, beautiful onion seed. It's very, very fine, and I've got very wet hands, so it's going to be a bit of a nuisance. But so what I do here, and I don't try to plant it really heavily, I just try to get a seed every 3 or 4 centimetres, but you know, if it get a bit more, I'll just thin those out later. But the less thinning, the less wastage, the better it is. So we just row those out. These are black seeds, so it's very hard to actually see them, but we come right through there. Things like leaves, clods of soil, I try to avoid putting back over the seeds, so it can just prevent those little first leaves from pushing through. So with this little bit of rain we're getting, it's quite nice to leave the trench open because the actual seeds are getting a little bit of moisture. What I would do now is I would actually just try to crumb in, and sometimes I would even use a sieve for this, but I'm just trying to crumb in a little bit of soil to avoid any heavy clodding over that seed. Just pad that down ever so lightly. It's quite good if you can, is just to create a little dish just in the soil, just so rain and everything would just lightly collect above that. Now I will also water these with sea salt. I'm just trying to make sure, I should really have a little spout on these, on my watering can, which I don't, because it's lost. But this is just to avoid any really heavy rilling of the water. My last thing is I'm just going to plant one row of broccoli through here. Now this broccoli is a fantastic broccoli. It's an evergreen. It's a broccoli that you can keep picking, so it's almost like a perennial broccoli. So very careful with our seedlings again. Just place those out. And probably 4 is ample through there. Put one on the edge, which can hang over a little bit. Again, just create my little dishes around each plant. And we put our sea salt in. Job done. Very simple. So again, the key now is just keeping that consistent moisture up. Let's hope we get a bit of warmth still in the weather, and we'll be picking cabbage and broccoli and hopefully onions in the spring.